Hello, it's me, and we're going to be doing a tutorial on the network library, which is new in Garry's Mod 13, which isn't new anymore, but it is a very, very helpful library, included by default. Don't have to include any modules. Much more efficient than DataStream, certainly easier to use, and I do believe more efficient than user messages. And you can go from the client to the server, server to client. Very easy to transmit data using this library, and it is every single person who programs in GModLua, or I guess scripts in GModLua, should know this information. So let's get started. I'm in a shared Lua file. It's just in Lua/autorun, which means it's loaded on both the server and client. And ordinarily, I wouldn't do this in a shared file just because I don't like to. You can, but for the purpose of this tutorial, so I don't have to switch back and forth and whatever, I'll just operate in a shared environment. And you can do things in a shared file. If you want to operate on the server and client independently, you can just say if server then server stuff, and else it's going to be on the client. Alternatively, you could do if client, else, and then it's going to be on the server. One of these is going to be true no matter what you do. So anyway, so the first thing we want to know about the net library is who's receiving the message. So let's just say we want to send the message from the server to the client, and let's just say what we want to do is we want to have a con command, and then just, this would be stupid to do, but just for the sake of argument, we'll say whatever you type after the con command, whatever arguments you put, it will send to the client as strings, or a string, I guess. We'll just use the first like 2 arguments, I guess, just for the sake of simplicity. So the first thing you want to do is you want to pool our net message, our net string, the name of the fucking net message. So in order to do that, we want to do util.addNetworkString, and then let's just put in tutorial, and this is going to be the name of your net message that you send. So we want to pool that using this utility function. And just as a little side note, you might be wondering, why is it in the utility library, not the net library? Well, Gary's actually asked about this, and it's because you can use the add network string for other things. It's not just for the net library, so it's in the utility library. Just a little tidbit of information. Anyway, so first thing we want to do is define our con command function, so I'll do that really quick. Right, so I have now defined the con command function. So what we want to do is we want to get the first 2 arguments, and we want to not do anything unless these 2 arguments are present. So we can just do args1 and args2, then we will do things. So in order to use the net library, we first call net.start, and then that string that we define, or that we pooled using addNetworkString, that is the name of the net message. So we start it, and then let's do write string args1, and the reason I'm doing 2 strings is so that I can tell you about how it works, which is a really stupid thing to say, but you'll get it in a second. And then once we're done writing things, we will send it to the player using net.send. If you would like to send it to every player on the server, you can do net.broadcast, right, like that. But we are not going to do that. So we need a receiver function that sends it. We need a receiver function. So on the client, we are going to put a receiving function, which does not need any arguments. So in order to define this function as a receiving function, we do net.receive, the name of the message, and then the function to call, receive message. So now this is the reason I have two strings. In order to utilize these things that are just sent to wherever, you will call them in the order that they were sent. So we'll do string 1 and then 2. And in order to read, it's the same as writing. It's read string. So there we go. Now we have both the strings read from the net message, and we will just I don't know. Let's just print them just for funsies, because we're going to be in the console anyway. So it's going to print string 1 and 2. And that's basically all there is to it. Let's go in game and test. So I have gone ahead and loaded into a game, and so we're going to type our con command and then our arguments. Hello world, because cliches is good. Anyway, as you can see, it sends the message, sends the con command to the server. Server says, okay, here's what you sent, sends a net message back. This is completely useless and impractical, but it's a tutorial, so like, what do you want from me? I hope you enjoyed this tutorial that teaches you how to do nothing useful, but does go over the net library, which is the most useful thing added to Gmod 13 in my opinion, which I think is an opinion shared by many. But anyway, there we go. That's the net library. You can also do the exact same thing from the client to server. The only difference being, instead of doing net.send to a player, you would do net.send to server. Literally the only difference. And then you'd have the net.receive and all that on the server instead. And then, of course, well, I'm eating my words here. In the receiver function, if it's on the server, it does have arguments, and it can also have it. You can have length, that's the size of the message, and then on the server you also have a second argument of the player who's sending the net message. If I'm sending a complex quantity of data, like a table or like a list of configuration values, I will usually go for a net message from client to server instead of con commands, because I find them much easier to work with. Just, if not only for the simple fact that you can format a table on the client, send it to the server, and then validate, instead of having it have to be split up into arguments and then reformatted on the server. But that's for like complicated things. If it's just for like doing something simple, then a con command is probably the better way to go about it. But it's really up to you to decide which one you would like to use. So, right. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Hope you learned something. If you didn't, sorry.